Everybody remembers their first wave, whether it be in the ocean, their first break in business, or their first big win. I'm David McClymont, a former competitive surfer now turned C-suite executive leading the Palm Beach Symphony into its 48th season and your host on the Waves of Success podcast.
This show is brought to you by IYC Yachts, Chervaux, and Square Grouper. Produced by Indie House Films.
Hey everybody, welcome to Waves of Success. I'm David McClymont, and I'm thrilled to be on location today in the Hilton Hotel located in West Palm Beach. The Hilton Hotel is one of the premier hotels in our area, and it's also the official hotel for the Palm Beach Symphony. I am thrilled to have a very special guest with us today, Gopal Rajegowda, who has led the transformation of this area. We're going to be talking to Gopal a little bit more about reimagining and how they have really transformed the city line here. Gopal, thanks for being with me.
Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. So you've been a busy man. Here we sit in the presidential suite. I must say this might be the only time that I have the pleasure of being in the presidential suite at the Hilton. But tell us what you've been up to. You've been a busy person.
Yeah, I have been busy, actually. I guess a little bit of background, on myself might put things in context. But I've been with the related companies almost 18 years. So started in 2004 in New York. And my career has been, heavily focused on hospitality. So a lot of hotel work that morphed into a lot of placemaking work, a lot of retail, restaurant work, a lot of public space, urban planning work, and how sort of the horizontal piece of our projects tie into the vertical components, whether it's office, residential, or hotel, and effectively, city building, because that's what we do as developers that are related. In 2011, after finishing a major resort casino project in Las Vegas called the Cosmopolitan Resort and Casino, I met a partner at the company. His name is Ken Himmel, who is the CEO of Related Urban Development. Ken Himmel and Steve Ross have been partners for over 25 years. And Ken and Steve actually bid on the RFP to build City Place back in 1995 and won that RFP, as you know, in 1996. So they've been in this market for 26 years. In 2011, because of my hotel background, I got asked by Ken to lead this project that we're sitting in, the Hilton project. We had just won the RFP to develop a flagship 400-room hotel connected to the Palm Beach County Convention Center here on Okeechobee Boulevard, adjacent to what was City Place. And spent about 18 months negotiating a ground lease contract with the county, with Palm Beach County. And we broke ground June of 2014, remember that, and opened the hotel January of 2016, so about 6.5 years ago. A lot has happened in that time. And right after opening the hotel, we did a grand opening party, I think, in April of 2016, and I was asked to move down here to effectively start the Related Southeast platform.
Incredible. You and I were talking offline about my history here. So it's sort of ironic that my first 4 years of life, I was born at Good Samaritan Hospital, which is just north of here. And then we lived exactly where Brio is right now. Actually, it's in between Brio and the movie theaters for the first 4 years before I moved up to Jupiter. And now fast forward all these years later, and here I am CEO of the Palm Beach Symphony, which is located on Hibiscus.
Wow.
So I can tell you firsthand, it's been incredible to watch the transformation that you and the team have created. Speak a little bit about the iterations, if you will. It was Rosemary Square, and then it was City Place, and talk to us a little bit about that and the challenges, I think. One of the things that we love to talk about, Gopal, on the show is business is not straight-lined, right? Yeah. It's not an elevator that just goes up to the 9th floor very quickly. There are a lot of challenges in business in every single industry. So share with our audience some of the things that you faced and how you overcame those challenges, reimagined and pivoted.
Yeah. And I would say there's certainly a lot of challenges in business. I think maybe in development there are more challenges than normal because development is a cyclical business. But I guess to kind of rewind back and tied to what I said earlier, so Related Companies won the RFP to build City Place in 1996, started building I think around 1998, and in 2000 City Place opened. City Place, as you know, because you were here at that time, was a very, very pioneering project. And in fact, City Place was a development of regional impact master plan for the downtown of West Palm across 72 acres of land. So it was a master plan district in a downtown. Opened again in 2000. When I look back at the history of how it opened, I look at City Place, and I look at what was happening in the country around lifestyle centers. So let me explain to you. A lifestyle center, for lack of a better term, is an outdoor shopping and entertainment district. Came out of mall development and mall developers, because there was an ability to, in the nicer climate places, to create these walkable districts with retail, with restaurants, with entertainment, which is what City Place was. What's amazing, though, is Related made this major investment here. As you know, it opened with a bang. The downtown had never seen anything like this. And it turned out to be a major economic engine and growth engine for the whole downtown, for the whole county, in fact. It was a place that anyone in Palm Beach County, probably, even in other parts of Florida, would come to see. So it was a spectacle. Again, opened in 2000. When you look back at history, in 2000 was the dot-com crisis. So obviously the economy took a hit then. And then fast forward to 2008, you had the major financial crisis, which because you were living here, had a major negative, financial impact on this whole area. So Related owned it through that whole period. And then post 2008, I would say, when I started coming here in 2011 and beyond, we have what I call sort of the reinvention, reimagination of the retail space, where retail was slowly pivoting away from pure transactional spaces into experiential spaces. And I can talk a little bit more about kind of what's happening in that world, because I spent a lot of time speaking to CEOs in the retail space. So back to what I said. So City Place opened in 2000. You had kind of two recessions through 2008. In 2004, I believe the convention center opened without a flagship hotel, the hotel we're sitting in today. And in 2008, across the way from where we're sitting, Related ended up building an office building called City Place Office Tower, which coincidentally, I don't think this has ever happened in the history of our company. Coincidentally, we bought back over the last 12 months. We sold in 2009. We usually don't sell assets. Sold it in 2009 and just bought it back. So that goes to show, how bullish we are about this market moving forward. And then in 2016, we opened the Hilton, again with a bang. I think that to the point of what you made earlier, the convention center was here but didn't have a flagship hotel. And convention centers, it doesn't take a genius to understand that convention centers don't work without flagship hotels. The only full service hotel here was the Marriott, which, as we know, is a little bit fragmented and disconnected from here, and it wasn't close enough for meeting planners to say, I want to do my conventions here, I want to do my group here. So opened the Hilton very successfully in 2016. And then in 2017, we opened the 80,000 square foot Restoration Hardware Gallery, which is 4 levels with a restaurant and wine bar at the top. I think I see you having lunch there quite often, so you know what I'm talking about. Beautiful facility, one of the most successful kind of galleries within the restoration gallery portfolio. You
were saying among the top in the nation, right? Number 2?
Yeah, it's definitely amongst the top 5 in the country.
Incredible.
Without a doubt. And it goes to show there's a lot of home and home furnishings that home furnishing dollars that get spent in this market with all the home purchases and second home purchases and all the above.
Well, if I can interject just for 1 second, I think it's very fascinating when you think about that property. When I looked back and I saw that you were relocating from the original City Place or whatever it was called then, and you were putting it in the middle of Okeechobee Boulevard, me being the novice that doesn't know much about development said, why would they ever do that? Nobody is going to go there in between Okeechobee Boulevard.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden I'm having lunch there all the time.
Yeah. I think that, it was hard to see what it would become, because at that time, the gallery concept was still kind of in its early days. And the CEO, Gary Friedman, who's a very well-known well-known person in the retail world, had a vision, right? And his vision was to take a furniture brand and create more of a hospitality experience. When you walk into that building, it's beautiful. You're not really sure if you're walking into a gallery, a boutique hotel, and of course you get up to the top and you have this amazing atrium space with nano walls. You feel like you could be anywhere in the world. So he focuses on design, and he did a great job with that. So at the time, he wanted to create this gallery, and we had this site, which again was part of the original City Place master plan, but there had never been a building on it. In fact, when I started coming here in 2011-12, we studied doing an office building on the site, but it's an odd shape and was going to be difficult from a design standpoint to make work, so we ended up doing that. And then post 2017, we started a journey to reimagine City Place. And as you know, I wasn't part of the original development or design team who designed the project. But the one thing I did know when I got involved here was that the world was changing. And not only was the world changing, West Palm was on the cusp of changing. And I knew that because we had opened this Hilton hotel very successfully, and ultimately had opened the restoration at the end of 2017. And I felt, when I looked at the property we owned in the middle of the downtown, and just as a developer, with a bird's eye view, without any history really, which helped me because I came in kind of with a fresh perspective,
Right.
which helped a lot, because I think some of the other partners in the company who had been here for a long time
Or maybe too close to it.
were too close to it, and hard to see sort of the light beyond the trees kind of thing. So I came here and I looked at it and I said, wow, this is incredible. We have this incredible piece of property in the middle of a downtown, anchored on one end, south end, hotel, convention center. Restoration was on its way. And then on the north end, I knew that the Bright Line train was coming. And the train had not been open. I think the train opened in January 2018, sometime around that time. But I knew, just being from New York and using the Acela to go between Boston and DC and New York, that and also spending a lot of time in Europe and Asia and understanding how important trains are and connectivity is, I felt that it was incredible that we were going to have this amazing piece of infrastructure, a high-speed train, to connect us 1 hour to downtown Miami, half an hour to Fort Lauderdale. At that time, they were talking about Orlando, but it was still kind of, not set. Of course, as you know, by the end of the year, they'll be done with Orlando, and first Q next year, we'll have connectivity in 2 hours to Orlando International Airport, and eventually Tampa, hopefully. So I looked at this and I said, oh, and by the way, you'll understand this being in the culture world. I also looked at it and I said, what is it that is important to the community here? And I looked at it and I said, oh my God, Kravis Center is next door. By the way, even to rewind back even further, Kravis opened in 1995, which is incredible to me when I look at the aerials and I say, wow, Alexander Dreyfus had this incredible vision to create a foundation in the downtown around culture. And the Norton Museum of Art had been here historically, but to put, I think, one of the top performing arts, theaters, centers here, right in the downtown, was a big move, right? So he understood that culture was going to be a major anchor for the downtown. But
Well, I think that goes to the cluster effect, doesn't it? If you talk about cluster, and I think about Wynwood, and you think about some of these other areas that create cluster, sort of fascinating. That was the old high school. That was the Twin Lakes High School. So to your point about Alexander Dreyfus's vision, it's pretty amazing how much it transformed that area for arts and culture. Here's another thing I wanted to ask you. I remember you invited me about 7 or 8 years ago to the Urban Land Institute conference at the convention center, and there were a whole bunch of big names in the commercial real estate arena that were talking, and they said, what are the top 10 reasons why people and organizations will move to a particular city? And I think arts and culture was 3 or 4.
Yeah.
It was among the top 5, I remember. And I walked out of there thinking, I didn't realize how important art and culture was to a particular city from an urban planning and a development standpoint. Can you speak a little bit about that? And I know that you've been great supporters of the arts. You're supporters of us. Obviously, we have a great partnership with you at the Palm Beach Symphony. But speak a little bit as to how that becomes a recipe for success.
Absolutely. And I was about to touch upon when I started this process with my team and a lot of very smart consultants, team members, who were excited about this opportunity. What I saw was downtown, and specifically our site, was surrounded by major cultural institutions, whether it was the Kravis, the Norton Museum, Palm Beach Drama Works, Palm Beach Symphony being close by, the Four Arts being right across the bridge. I mean, there was so much of a cluster of culture in this area. So when we were thinking about reimagining here, we thought about multiple pillars. One thing we thought about was public space. And we were fortuitous enough. In fact, during that ULI conference that I invited you to, there was another gentleman there who was the partner of a company called GEL, G-E-H-L. And GEL is a really incredible company I learned about. It's a public realm company. So all they do is focus on public spaces and people and interactions in public spaces. Started by a guy in the 70s, Jan Gehl, who that's all he wanted to focus on. Copenhagen-based company. If you've ever been to Copenhagen, it's one of the top quality of life places to live in the world because they focus on public spaces. So Matthew Lister, who's now the partner of the Americas for GEL, was also at that conference. And as I was thinking through this place and what it wanted to be, I heard him speak, at one of the talks. And I said, wow, this is incredible. And I met him. And I said, hey, would you want to join us? Because I really think public space could be, an incredible component of what we're trying to do here. So we work with Gail. We focus on public space. As you know, we reimagined Rosemary Avenue as the main north-south spine, going from the Hotel Convention Center all the way down to 360 Rosemary now. And eventually we want to take that design, which is a curbless street, landscaped, walkable, all the way down to Clematis, with a vision to connect Okeechobee to Clematis, with the square in the heart of all of it. And as you know, more development and density planned. So public space, culture. To your point, I think that, I've always been excited about art. I've always been excited about public art. Living in New York City, and in fact living right off of Madison Square Park, so I saw what public art did to the transformation of that park, alongside Shake Shack and Danny Meyer, which is pretty incredible to see the combination of food and culture, which we're doing a lot of here.
I'm a huge fan, by the way.
Yeah.
I love his book, Setting the Table. I quote it all the time.
It's fantastic.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's one of a kind.
I use his term all the time: constant, gentle pressure. They ask him in the book, how did you get to be Danny Meyer and have this huge restaurant company? He said, it's very simple: constant, gentle pressure. So I use that now, obviously, with the staff and everything else, but go on.
It's fantastic. So public spaces, culture, as you probably know, we have a major public art program. We've got 4 major pieces, in this district, and we're doing more around the city, and we'll continue to add more public art, because I think public art creates vibrancy, but just as important, public art's inclusive. And I think it's important to think about inclusivity, because that's a big component for us, because this is a downtown, and anyone can come to our public spaces. Anyone can interact in our, in our public spaces, around our public art, can spend time, in our park, call it. Experiential retail. We talked a little about restoration, and we knew that we wanted to have some of the best brands in the world that were interested in being in walkable, immersive environments that were culture focused and experience focused. So with restoration and others we have coming that we're talking to, that we've already instilled. And then food. I think that, everyone loves restaurants. I always like to say chefs are the new rock stars, which they are, right? I mean, it's with all the connection to media and what has happened is pretty incredible. But thinking about what do we want the curation of the retail and the food components to be, to make this an exciting, dynamic downtown. So we had public space, art, culture, food, experiential retail, density. And I think this is one of the things that when City Place had opened, going back to what you asked earlier, what was a major challenge here was, from 2000 to 2016, 17, the density that we all hope for as a company never really got built. I like to say that this market was about internal growth, not external growth, and that has completely changed. I can explain a little bit about that on the office leasing side.
It's almost the inverse now, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, I would say, if we're going to talk about that point, in the last 18 months. Our team has leased over 500,000 square feet of Class A office space, 80% of which has been new to market. So it's totally flipped, which wasn't the story then, right? If you owned an office building in downtown and you were going to build another one, or you owned one and others owned others, you were always trying to shuffle the pieces around. So it was internal, tenants wanting to go to new spaces and new buildings. And then the last component, which I think is very important, is community being at the center of what we do. And as you know, we have a great collaboration with Palm Beach Symphony and many other cultural institutions that we allow to use our public spaces. We collaborate on events. We want the neighborhood to feel like it's the center of the community. And through those collaborations that happens, with organizations here locally, with the city, with the county, and with our brands.
One of the things that I always love to ask our guests is how they overcome adversity and challenges. And I know that for you and everything you just discussed, it wasn't always easy. Can you share with the audience a little bit of how you overcame challenges, adversity, how you pivoted with the team during some of those tough times, whether it be the tech bubble of 99 to 2000, whether it be the subprime debacle of 2008, 9, and 10? Share with the audience how you've overcome some of those challenges to reimagine.
Yeah, and to be fair, as I said, some of those early challenges I wasn't involved until later, but I give a lot of kudos to our chairman Steve Ross, who has incredible vision, and kind of knows when there's a great opportunity. And loves building cities, So, but I think in talking about adversity and trying to get through challenge, there's nothing more difficult to getting through scenarios where everyone is saying, you're going to fail. I love that, because for me, that's a challenge. In fact, it keeps life more exciting and less boring. I want to be doing challenging work because it pushes me, it pushes my creative limits, and it actually creates the best work you could possibly produce, because you are forced to think even more out of the box to create something that is totally different and dynamic than what it was.
If I can interject just for 1 second, the first Ironman that I competed in and completed was in 2010 in Lake Placid, and I think the only reason I completed it is because I had somebody told me there's no way you could do it.
Yeah.
So it's to your point about being challenged by people that are sitting on the sidelines saying you can't do that.
Yeah. I know what you mean about the Ironman. I've never done an Ironman, but I've done four marathons.
So then
And as you know, that last 5 miles from 21 to 26 and a half, it's pretty hard. I mean, your body is basically telling you can't finish it, but your mind is getting you over the hump. And we share that experience, but it's a great analogy, right? Because I think being able to sort of push through adversity and believing in your vision and having a team behind you, because what I do is a team sport. It's not about an individual. I try to be the best leader possible, and I try to inspire my team. I push my team to think out of the box. I hope I can lead by example. But it takes an army to do what I do. And look, I think.
Have you read the book Good to Great by Jim Collins?
I've heard it. I've heard about it. I haven't read it.
He talks about that.
He does. Okay.
So he does comparative analysis of same company, same industry, and why one was so successful. And one of the case studies was Kmart versus Walmart or Target. And a lot of it comes down to the leadership and being able to inspire teams to rise above those challenges. And another thing they talk about in that book is it's first who, then what. So if you're going to build a company, you've got to surround yourself with people that are obviously a lot more talented than you, and then create a culture where you allow them to tell you what to do. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
That's the special sauce, right?
It is the special sauce.
Yep. Yeah.
So here's the other thing. Okay, so now related is buying up buildings. You've bought, I believe it's Esperanti, Phillips Point. You're building one Flagler. Is that what they call it? One Flagler?
One Flagler, yeah.
You built 360, which is incredible. We had the opportunity to do a concert on the 10th story terrace there. You guys are on fire. Let me play devil's advocate, and I'd love for you to share with the audience two things. One, how is Related assisting with providing affordable housing? I think one of the challenges that we have in this market that many people will speak to is it's great that real estate is doing so well. It's great that people are moving here. Isn't that wonderful? But is it also creating challenges for affordable housing? So first question, what are you doing for affordable housing? Secondly, how are you managing that growth of these incredible buildings where there's demand with traffic?
Yeah, two very important questions that come up a lot. On the affordable and workforce housing side of things, I will say, and most people don't know this, but Steve Ross started Related Companies in the 70s as an affordable housing developer. And in fact, today we are the largest owner and manager of affordable housing in the country. So most people don't know that about us, right? They think Related, they think, high-end office buildings and residences and building neighborhoods, which we do. But, back to when Steve started the company, affordable housing has always been a main focus for the company. We have a big affordable housing division in New York. It has become very apparent very quickly, certainly in this post-COVID world where the growth has accelerated significantly in South Florida and more specifically in places like Miami and Palm Beach, that affordable housing is becoming a big challenge. So what I would say is we acknowledge that it's an issue, and we're sort of putting our thinking hats on right now with the city and with the county and others to think about how do we put our platform to use here, our affordable platform, and help build what I believe is needed is thousands of units in and around the downtown, because being able to, having people be able to walk or take public transport to work is important. And I think more affordable housing will get built out west. We have to think about how do you get people from, and this ties to the traffic question, how do you get people who are coming here from the west or the south or the north to come to the downtown, right? So on the topic of traffic, I guess every great city that grows, if it's growing in the right direction, will have a traffic challenge. I always like to say it's a good problem to have. If you look at traffic today in the city, traffic is an issue during peak hours. So 7 to 9 in the morning, 4 to 6 p.m. at night. just like any major city, any downtown. And on the weekends, it's, as more restaurants come on board and the crevice is full and there's a lot of activity and vibrancy downtown, more people are spending time here on the weekends, and it's becoming year round. Whereas before, as you've lived here for a long time, and when we kind of dealt with this, in the early days of City Place, it was a very seasonal place, meaning, it would be busy from, Thanksgiving to May, and then it'd drop off for another 6 months.
Well, I spent 15 years working at Bear Lakes Country Club, and we had about 1,000 members, and every single year we would study the migration so that it assisted us with forecasting revenue.
Yeah.
So if I knew that our members were leaving right around tax time, April 15th, and they were coming back November the 1st, then I could predict revenue streams. And you're absolutely right. I think what has changed that, this is my personal opinion, citing no authority, I think COVID changed a lot of that, because a lot of our donors that come April 15th, there would be the tractor trailer getting ready to transport their car back up to the Hamptons or New York or wherever they were going.
Yeah.
They were stuck down here and realized that it's actually not that bad in May or June. So I think it really changed behavioral patterns as it relates to seasonality with people that were coming down.
Definitely.
Would you agree with that?
I would definitely agree to that, and I think that the true office migration that we're seeing and driving here, in younger professionals and younger families living here year round, having kids going to school in August, so maybe they go away for the summer for a couple of months, but they're really here, at least 10 months a year. I mean, I think that's what's happening. Just real quickly back to the traffic thing, because I didn't fully answer your question. Look, I think we're at a fortuitous point where the city is growing exponentially. Very exciting. A lot of new people are moving here. A lot of businesses are moving here. A lot of retailers and restaurants want to be here. It's very exciting to see this come to this point. From a traffic standpoint, public and private need to come together. So, we're often working with the city and the county and thinking about things about, like, for example, how do we make sure the technology on the traffic lights is the best technology possible? Because we've all been to places where when there's not a lot of pedestrian traffic, the traffic lights are moving faster. When there's more, maybe it's more sensitive, but there's technology out there. So I think technology is important. I think last mile mobility solutions are very important. We both know Rafael Clemente from the Downtown Development Association. He's passionate about this, about everything from shared bikes, which we partnered with Bright Lines on Bright Bikes. There's the circuit electric scooter concept that's here, which is fantastic and free to use in the downtown. And I think for getting people from, one of the biggest challenges is how do we get people from the West, right, to get downtown outside of using a car. I think that is an interesting challenge. And going back to what we talked about earlier, I mean, I think the topic of traffic is just like what we're talking about, earlier. It's a mega challenge that smart minds need to come to the table, and the right team needs to be at the table to come up with big solutions to make sure that we continue to grow the way we all want to grow as residents in this city.
Well, I also think there's a recipe, isn't there, of these buildings that you're building? And you showed me the plans, which we'll put up on the website after the podcast. It's very fascinating. Some of those are affordable housing projects, aren't they?
Yeah, actually, one of the buildings we're building called 575 Rosemary, which coincidentally is at the site of formerly what was Macy's. So getting back to retail and a reimagination, when City Place was built, Macy's was necessary to have a department store in that project. Of course, fast forward to today, it's less relevant. So we bought Macy's out of their ground lease and rezoned the site. And in fact, right outside this window, you can see we're pushing dirt. We're building a 21-story, 322-unit luxury residential building. But of those 322 units, 15% is workforce housing. So great example of public and private coming together.
Right, and that's what I was going to say. I think there's a recipe. Obviously, within the downtown footprint, if you have affordable housing, then people can walk to work. They can walk to restaurants, like some of the big cities that we have in this country.
Yeah,
right.
We're big believers in mixed housing. And I think as the city grows, and I know the city and the county are big, highly focused on this, that needs to come into play, as more luxury housing is built, because there also is the luxury customer that wants that higher end housing, whether it's single family homes or high-rise living. We need to think about how we mix affordable and workforce in.
What's next for you and related?
What's next? There's a lot, as I showed you earlier. This master plan of what was City Place, now is the Square, has kind of morphed into a plan that I don't even think any of us, including myself, could have conceived initially. And in large part, I think you touched upon it earlier. COVID was an accelerator I think, to the point of what you said, a lot of people from the Northeast and the Midwest and even the West Coast were in Florida during COVID and realized, wow, this is such a great lifestyle place to live. And, maybe some people have the flexibility of working hybrid hours where they don't have to be in the office, 5 days a week. Maybe they're in the office 2 or 3 days a week. Some are fully remote, so that's a whole nother story. But because of that, and because we had time here during what was a very difficult time period, let's be real about it. COVID was a very challenging time period, but we saw the migration coming, and that got us really excited about sort of doubling down on the city. I think we doubled down once, 22 years ago, and we were sort of long-term loving the vision of what we had for downtown, but that is all multiplied. And we're working on multiple buildings. We have 2 under construction now.
One Flagler's one.
One Flagler's
right.
one, and 575 Rosemary, the residential building's another. And I would say in the next 5 years, there's probably, somewhere in the range of 8 to 10 buildings we'd like to build between office, a lot more office density, residential. We'd like to build rentals, maybe some condo product. We're looking at that. And then perhaps another hotel or two. And then with all of those buildings, retail, restaurants, activity, vibrancy at the base tied into an active public realm. We were so successful in our work with Gell on the public realm work that we're highly focused on how do you create vibrant cities around public space. And this is, they're great examples of how public spaces transform cities, whether you look at the High Line in New York or the Belt Line in Atlanta or, many other examples of how, public space is a main anchor. So we've focused on that because we've been successful in the reimagination from City Place to Rosemary Square at the time. I think, other things that excite me about what's coming, University of Florida.
That's a big one.
Which I think is...
Speak a little bit about that for those people that are listening to Waves of Success that don't understand what's happening with the University of Florida.
Yeah, so University of Florida, which I didn't realize is a top 5 public state university in the country. So major university.
Well, it's sort of funny because when I grew up, if you said that you were going to UF, the reaction was, I'm so sorry. And now it's almost impossible to get into.
Yeah, it's
I have friends that have children that go to Suncoast, and Suncoast, as you know, one of the top schools in the country, and it's IB program, and they don't get in, so it's amazing.
Yeah, amazing. I've learned a lot about it. The current president, Ken Fox, was formerly the president of Cornell University, and led Cornell Tech in New York, which is the Cornell Technology Initiative on Roosevelt Island, which has been a major kind of attractor of more tech companies to the city of New York City. But what University of Florida is looking to do, and I understand they're talking and finalizing a deal with the city and the county, which is a 20-acre parcel, 1 block to the west of the square, between Sapodilla and Australian. Sapodilla and Tamarind. Australian goes all the way to the lake. 20-acre campus, all innovation-based. So we're talking about
IT,
cybersecurity, blockchain and cryptocurrency, sustainability, all the tech things that this city really has not had before. So for me, it's very exciting because today, when you look at sort of employment and you look at economy here, you look at the tenants we're leasing to, which are all fantastic. It's heavy financial services and associated services. I do think the future is going to bring tech, and I think University of Florida is going to lead the way on that. And I think there's more exciting things that the university is looking at doing that could be great anchors for this community. So I think that University of Florida is fantastic. I'm very excited about public art, as you know. I didn't touch upon it earlier, but we'll continue what we're doing in public art and kind of making this an exciting city through world-class, world-renowned public art. I told you of the works we have in the square. There's the water pavilion in the middle of the square, which was designed by Jeppe Hein, who's a Danish artist based in Berlin. Symmetry Labs did the wishing tree, which is a hyper-realistic 25-foot tree that has 100,000 LEDs on it, fully programmable. First one they did was in Burning Man in 2017.
Which my kids love, by the way.
They do fantastic. We have a Mumbai-based artist that did this piece on one of the buildings called My East is Your West. I don't know if you've seen that flashing on the top of the building.
On the top of the building.
Yeah. Really great permanent piece. And then on the north end, very proud about a piece we commissioned Yinka Shanabare. Yinka Shanabare is a British-Nigerian sculptor artist based in London, who does a lot of incredible work. And we commissioned him to do one of his wind sculptures. So it's a wind sculpture with sort of this African batik painting fabric on the exterior. Really beautiful. Almost looks like a piece of fabric blowing in the wind. And that piece we did as the first ever public-private partnership with the city of West Palm, where they contributed some funds. We contributed a majority of the funds. We installed the work, commissioned the work, and then we granted the piece to the city, title of the piece to the city in perpetuity to be part of the city's public art program. So we hope that, we hope that's a precedent for other developers. And then at One Flagler, you may have heard the story, but as we were acquiring the site, we realized that the Christian Science Church, which exists there, which is a beautiful building right off the Middle Bridge there, built in 1928, designed by a group, Horace Trumbauer Architects. What we had discovered, though, however, was the real architect and designer of it was a young gentleman by the name of Julian Abel. Julian Abel was the first African-American graduate of University of Pennsylvania's Architecture School. Julian Abel designed the Philadelphia Art Museum. He designed Duke University campus, Widener Museum at Harvard. A lot of prolific, buildings, but at the time, because he was black, he never got credit. So we were very touched by the story. So what we've done is we've created 3/4 acre of public. First of all, we're landmarking the church in perpetuity. It wasn't landmarked, so we're very excited about it because it's a beautiful structure and it needed to be landmarked. Then we're creating 3/4 acre public space around the church, and we are going to commission a world-renowned black artist to honor Julian Abel. And then on top of that, we've named the park Julian Abel Park. So if you can think about sort of public space, public art, history, diversity, inclusivity, we're checking all the boxes because we get excited about city building, and these are the things that are going to put the city on the map. Of course, we're also excited about building, incredibly designed buildings that house, our tenants and our residents and our tourists, like the hotel. But we also think about community and how the brand of West Palm is going to continue to rise up.
And I think that's where you truly do live up to being great community partners. I know that you have for us personally with Palm Beach Symphony, but I think many other people would say the same. Share with our audience people that have influenced you. Obviously, we all have our mentors, right, Gopal? We all have the people that inspired us along the way. Who are some people, whether it be relatives, whether it be bosses, that helped, assisted, and inspired you along the way? Yeah,
great question. I've had a number of great mentors over the journey, as you know. I mean, you can. It's hard to get places in life without mentors, right? I mean, we all need help, and guidance. What I would say is probably the most important mentor in my life is my father. I didn't really touch upon this earlier, but my father migrated to New York City in 1965. Part of what is now coined as the Indian Diaspora, which are Indians who left India and spread out all over the world. At that time, it was a lot of engineers and doctors. My father was a medical doctor. Ended up in New York, in Harlem, New York. And then ended up actually spending about 48 years at one public hospital in the South Bronx called Lincoln Hospital, where he ran the neonatology department. And so that's why my brothers and I, my mother also kind of migrated from India. He got married in India, and then my mother came over. So I have two brothers. We all grew up we were born in the Bronx, and then we grew up around New York City, but all because my father, migrated here. So he's been an amazing mentor in so many ways, but just to watch someone so passionate about what he does, working for the community, right, for a public hospital. He wasn't a private doctor, and excelling in what he did, and getting through adversity in a way that you say. So I always look at him and I say, if he did it and he got through what he got through, I mean, the 70s, 60s, 70s in Harlem and the Bronx was not a pretty place. I should be able to do it too. And he's been always a major anchor for me and of support. And others, I've had many mentors at related companies that have taught me the ways. Of course, Ken Himmel is someone that I'm very close to and who's done incredible work, and I've learned from him, and he's kind of been now he's my partner. He's a great partner. Of course, Steve Ross is just I don't think there's any other visionary out there that I've met that can think as big as he does, which was incredible too. But and many more, friends, family, my wife, I have a 9-month-old kid at home. He inspires me every day. As I told you earlier,
We talked about that before the show.
he's starting to get up on, stand up, which is inspiring. Talking about getting through adversity, right? So yeah, so there's a lot.
Talk to the audience about work-life balance, which is obviously so important for leaders like you and I. How do you unplug? What do you like to do? What inspires you?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough when you have a lot on your plate.
Obviously running. So
Yeah.
you've done some marathons. So that's
Yeah.
one of the things that's a passion for you that you like to do.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, one of the things that I love about living in Florida that I didn't know until I actually moved here from more of an urban environment like New York is access to the outdoors. So I live, adjacent to the hotel, as I told you, in Grandview Heights. I walk to work every day, which is a special thing for me. Kept a little bit of my New York spirit. But yeah, I run to the beach a few times a week. I cycle. I do some pretty long rides. I've gotten pretty into yoga and meditation in the last year and a half.
I have too.
So I think staying fit and staying not only physically fit but mentally fit is absolutely critical to being able to do your job and being able to kind of be there as a leader and also as a father and a husband too.
So true.
Yeah.
We all need that work-life balance.
Yeah. No.
Anything else you want to share before we close out?
I think as we're talking, I'm thinking about this notion of West Palm Beach and what could set West Palm Beach apart from other South Florida cities. And I have this amazing kind of big picture vision that I've talked to Raphael and others about, and that is, I think that West Palm Beach could be South Florida's first 15-minute city. And you might not have heard about what a 15-minute city is. A 15-minute city is a term that was coined by the mayor of Paris and Hidalgo, and that is living within a city where you can access everything within 15 minutes of your residence. So that means through walking, biking, or public transport. So that's kind of the life I live, right? Because I live in Grandview Heights. Of course, not everyone. You live in Jupiter, so it's a little bit farther away. But in West Palm Beach, I see this becoming this walkable, connected city where you can live, work, play, discover, education, all within this tight-knit fabric if it's planned properly. So I get very excited about that idea because I think cities of the future are going to be sort of, micro environments like that where you have all the amenities and everything you need within this small environment. It creates kind of these smaller, kind of very active communities. So that excites me. And I'm excited to talk with the city, the county, Raphael, more people here who are invested in the city and want to see it grow.
Well, I think that's already started. I know that I work right off of Hibiscus in the Symphony offices, and I walk all over. I walked here today, which isn't very far, but I could have taken the car, but I walked. Yeah. And I walked through the square. It was incredible. It was active.
Yeah.
Gopal, I want to thank you so much for being my guest on Waves of Success. It's been a pleasure. And I wish you nothing but continued success. And I want to thank you on behalf of the Symphony for everything you guys have done to support us and all the other arts organizations in the community.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our show with Gopal today. I want to thank all of you for tuning in to Waves of Success. And until next time, make sure you catch your wave.
If you've enjoyed this episode of Waves of Success, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and share. We'd like to thank our sponsors, IYC Yachts, Chervaux, and Square Grouper, and the production team at Indie House Films.